Welcome to the Go Slow to Go Fast Lifestyle Podcast, where we explore what it truly means to live with intention, calm, and clarity in a fast-paced world. Today on Go Slow to Go Fast, I'm interviewing Belinda Coker, and she's joining me from a friend's house in southern UK as she's recently come off trail from being in the Canary Islands when a major storm came up. And she is an Australian hiker, writer, an educator who helps women build confidence through real world adventure and responsible travel. Belinda has completed solo hikes from all over the world, including Australia's Red Centre to the Arctic Circle in Greenland. These experiences have shaped her core belief that confidence isn't something that you just think your way into. You have to step out into the world and build it through action. I'll be sharing her platforms later in the episode, and she's also offering a 10% discount for anybody who's interested in a home travel experience where you can be a sitter in somebody else's home in another part of the world and then have those, immersive experiences in that local area. So watch till the end. Belinda teaches women how structure, trust, and responsibility don't limit freedom. They actually create it. Her work in the world shows how intentional travel, immersive homestays, and practical adventure can lead to a deeper sense of stability, self-trust, and belonging in the world around you. If you've been hearing a whisper that you need to get outside of your comfort zone and go on that trip already, or experience a hike, do something different, this is an episode and a conversation for you. So stay tuned to the end to find out that 10% discount from Belinda. Go to her website and download her guide, which is like more than 78 pages long, and it has all kinds of helpful information for you to plan. Belinda, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic, Kendra. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Of course. Before we jump into your journey and your background, could you just share a little bit about what it means to go slow to go fast for you?
Yes, sure. Look, and I had a little think about this, and really, it's a conscious choice to move at a pace that honors your energy and your focus and your well-being. And it means taking time to notice the small moments, to breathe and to be fully present. And I was actually talking to my girlfriend about this morning because I'm staying with a girlfriend in the south of England at the moment. And, she's just so overwhelmed. And I just, and we were talking about what it actually meant. And it's something which actually, it's where you have space to, to grow, to be able to make decisions with clarity instead of pressure. And I think that was one of the main reasons why I adopted the life I've got right now, because I was able to, down tools and start going slow. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, in more ways than one, for what you do from day to day, whether you're out on a hike or you're visiting different parts of the world that you may
Yeah.
not be familiar with, you have to go slow for your safety. But
Yeah.
also, I'm sure you get a lot out of that experience by really enjoying
Yeah.
where you are in your surroundings.
Absolutely. Like if I took a look at myself 5 years ago, I was pretty much burnt out. I'd worn so many different hats in my life, a mom hat, business hat, wife hat, ex-wife hat. And I hadn't worn a Belinda hat for a long time. And I just felt like I was pulled in so many directions. And it wasn't until I actually slowed my life down it's clarity. I can say one thing is clarity. Like if I have to make a decision, it's not, it's not on the spur of the moment. I don't feel like I'm in a corner having to fight you know, for a little bit of, love of Belinda or time taken out in yoga Belinda or whatever. Everything seems so much more peaceful and I'm at peace, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And so in what point in your life did you have that moment where you came to that realization in your gut that you needed to do something different?
Okay, so it was actually in the year of the pandemic, so it was 2020, and I think that was a time where everyone really had a chance to take a good look at not only themselves but those around them. All sorts of things. People took a good look at their jobs. They took a good look at their home. I mean, how many people cleared out their home during that year? And I remember just looking in the mirror one day, and I just saw someone that had lost their vibrancy. I saw someone that had been a mother for a long time. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being a mother. I love being a mother. I love my children. But, when you are wearing the hats for other people for so long, work and business and as well, that had really taken its toll, and I'm not going to stop being a mother, but I managed to stop doing the other part of my life, eventually. And, so, I took a good look at myself. I put on weight. I had, my skin was sallow. I was unfit, to de-stress. I was reaching for that bottle of wine, and, a nice big bowl of comfort food, whatever that looked like. And it may well not have been, green, fresh and crunchy. And I just knew that I had to make some changes. And that was the day that I decided that I wanted to do something different. And I think it was about a week after that I went on a hike with some other people and in the rainforest. And it was just amazing. It was just, it was a rainforest that sort of very similar to something you'd see in Avatar. It had Avatar vibes. And I can just remember just walking through this rainforest going, oh my God, I feel like a big sponge has come and zapped all my stresses and worries away. It really was. And I felt renewed. It wasn't a long hike, but it was some, very steep, a steep gully that we, hiked down into and back up again. And, I was pretty exhausted, but I felt so renewed after that.
I love that just in a week made a change. Had you already had this on your schedule or did you just sign up and say, I'm going to do something
No,
outside my comfort zone?
I just decided I'd been, you know how Facebook kind of sort of sends you things right in the very, because they used to listen to you talking. Now they listen to you thinking, right? And I mean, I don't, I don't appreciate Facebook, but in this, I think somebody came a hiking group, a hiking group, in my area for some reason, and it was, and, that group also included a couple of my friends. So I had known about it, and I come from quite an outdoorsy part of Australia. There's a acai bar on every, along with a hot yoga studio on every street corner. It's one of those types of places. So going for a hike it wasn't something which was completely out of the norm. And it was something that I could quite easily, it was easily obtainable. So, mm, yeah.
So, yeah, you had the perfect timing of an
Yeah.
opportunity. Friends were already going on
Yeah.
this trip. You're out in the rainforest. So, from there, what happened next? How much did you change as far as your lifestyle?
Well, I think I was so renewed after that hike, and I was really happy that I'd actually done something for myself, and I hadn't felt like that in a long time. And I can just remember this feeling of, wow, that is amazing. And I came home, and I had a year 11 and a year 12-year-old, and a son who's in uni, and that kind of age group, they can be very selfish. I mean, my kids now, they've changed, 180 degrees, or 360 or whatever it is. They're back with me, we have a very, very close relationship. But I think, just in those final years of high school, as far as they're concerned, they're adults and they're just amazing. And is there food on the table? And then they're back out again. And so I think that part of my children's life had really had an effect on me, and probably not a positive effect. So, and it's nothing wrong with that. I mean, every parent goes through state of their children's life that can feel uncomfortable. You can feel not wanted, you can feel strained, and it does turn around. It's just like when you've got toddlers. I mean, sometimes you think that's the worst time of the world. And when you look back on it, you think, oh my gosh, I would love that again. So yeah,
Yes.
and it is. So I think it was. I felt that I had the time to start hiking again. And when I say again, I used to hike when I grew up in New Zealand, and I used to hike a lot in my 20s. So it was like about 35 years, and I'd hung up my hiking boots, and it wasn't really something that I was doing anymore. And so it was very easy for me to go, okay, I know this. I know this scene. I know it very, very well. I used to go for a lot of hikes with my family. And so for me to start hiking on a weekly basis and then twice a week, and it was just amazing. And that's when I started to take it really seriously and get into wilderness first aid and health and safety issues of hiking. And I took it very seriously after that.
Yeah, and it makes sense, when your children are in their later stages before they fly from the nest, we have to kind of go through those phases of, I may not like you right now. I love you, but I'm ready for you to go to the next phase. And so that was probably, it all kind of makes sense
Yeah.
now as you look
Yeah.
back that you were ready to do something different and
Yeah.
focus on you. And
Yeah.
your kids are ready to fly the coop and be adults, even though,
Yeah.
they weren't yet. So those phases of life, they change for you. You go into this space of hiking, which is not new, but it's been a
Yeah.
minute since you've
Yeah.
done this. And now, fast forward to where you are now. You are a master hiker. You're providing advice for women and men on how to find the best hiking trails and think about slow travel, which I
Yeah.
love. Can you
Yeah.
dive more into that for us?
Okay, so slow travel is very interesting. So I've actually got a slow immersive travel is, about savoring a place instead of rushing through it. So many a times, a lot of us have gone on vacation or, holidays if you're Oxford English, and you go to a place and you tick off all these lists and itineraries, and you stay in a hotel and you go out to restaurants, and more often than not it costs a fortune, and it can be extremely stressful to actually go on vacation. And a lot of people come back from a holiday and they feel like they need another holiday just to get over the holiday that they've had, and that shouldn't be the case. A full break of what our corporate life gives us, whether it's 2 weeks, a month, or however long you take, is just that, to give you a break to recharge the batteries and then come back renewed, or whatever your scenario is. And slow immersive travel is about savoring a place instead of rushing through it. And you might spend several days or a week in a place and just enjoying it, eating at the local marketa, saying hello to the locals, walking down the park, doing what the locals are doing. And so that's one aspect of it if you're slow traveling through a town. And then there's slow travel in the wilderness, where you're actually hiking from either campsite to campsite. A lot of hikes in the USA, you are hiking backcountry campsite to backcountry campsite. But in Europe, where everything's so much more compact, and your wilderness areas are sort of a lot more few and far between, you are hiking from one small village to another. And that really gives you immersive experience, because when you are and a lot of these old, very old trails that you can hike through in Europe, they're old pastoral routes or trade routes. An example is a hike that I just did in the Canary Islands through the GR131. It's 500 kilometres through all seven Canary Islands. And the Berber people actually inhabited, or were the first inhabitants of the islands, probably about, I think it's either 800 or 500 BC, so a long time ago. And so the trail actually runs through their old trade routes, which is pretty cool, and, there's a lot of hikes all over the world that do incorporate old trade routes. And that is really neat.
I love that, incorporating some history and just thinking that so many people before us have set foot literally on those trails for
Yeah,
centuries.
absolutely. And a really good example of that, is, of course, is the Camino de Santiago. So the Camino's been going since, 600 AD, or thereabouts. And you are following the same path that pilgrims have for, what are we, like, 1,500, a lot of years, 1,500 years.
Right, a
Which,
lot of years.
it is a long, long time, and,
Yeah.
and it is pretty cool. And I've actually got a blog post on my on Soul Treader, my hiking blog, about the
Hmm.
history of the West Highland Way. So the West Highland Way is a famous hike in Scotland, and and I've got a whole post on the history of that particular hike, and it's
Mm.
fascinating. When you know the history of a place, of a hike, really, it gives it a lot more meaning when you're hiking it.
Mhm. And, not just the history, which I'm a big history buff, I love all that. I'll have, like, my, book out when I'm traveling and kind of read up before I go out and experience it, but do you ever feel when you're out in these spaces, any energy that is different maybe in the rainforest versus a
Yeah.
trail up in Scotland in the Highlands? What's
Yeah.
that like?
Okay, so I did an amazing hike in the Red Centre of Australia. So the Red Centre of Australia is basically right in the middle of Australia, and it's not called the Red Centre because it's very hot. It is hot, but it's called the Red Centre because it's red dirt. And one of the most iconic images of the Red Centre is you can see a large mount called Iluru, or Ayers Rock. So, many people have actually seen the picture of the Ayers Rock. So I did the Larapinta Trail, which is about, I don't know, 200, I'm just going to say approximately 250 kilometers, 180 miles. So, and it runs over through the McDonald Ranges. And so this is a very, very sacred place for the Aranditi people. And it is just, and you can feel it. There are gorges there, that where the R&D people have actually used them as trade routes. And you'll walk through a gorge and you'll know that this has been such an important part to their history. And there'll be a handprint, there'll be like cave drawings along this gorge, which is amazing. But I had the most spiritual encounter there. So there's a part, I can't remember the Aboriginal name for this, but there's a part of the trail called Stanley Chasm. So it's it's a huge chasm, maybe but it's very, very narrow. It's about 10 foot wide. And the walls are just, they're very high, probably about 4 or 5 stories high. Anyway, so it was in the middle of the night. What was it in the middle of the night? It was 3 a.m. actually. And I wasn't having a very good time with someone I was in partnership with, romantic partnership with. It wasn't romantic. I think that was a problem. Anyway, so, and the Stanley Chasm is it's very spiritual place, but it's a women's only chasm. So the whole point of this area was for women to come together, and the elders would teach the younger women all about things. There was initiations, all sorts of things like this. This chasm is really, really important. It's got an amazing cultural significance. So it was about 3 a.m. and the moon was a full moon. So the full moon's and out there, out in the outback, the full moon is like a huge spotlight coming down, and so I could walk along the path towards the chasm without, with no head torch. Anyway, so I was walking along, and there's a part just before you get there where the men aren't allowed to go any further. Now, this got to this part, and there's some rocks there, and they looked big, dark, angry rocks. And I've just felt this whole, like, I just felt I was being degraded, and as I got to this one particular place. I just walked a little bit further and I got into the chasm. And I actually have a photo of this because I took a photo and the moon was shining straight down on me in this chasm. And
Wow.
I just felt like, and I can't put a number on it, but 100 women just embracing me and just saying, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. I was crying and I had a Nalgene water bottle and it was full, it had 4 liter in, and I actually dropped it and put a blood blister on my toe.
I have chills just listening to you tell
Yeah.
this.
I will send you a photo of the
Mm.
the chasm. It's amazing. So I walked back out of there and, and I went and made myself a cup of tea, put the burner, made myself a cup of tea, sort of waited until it got light about 6 o'clock. And I thought, oh, I'm going to go back. And the rocks on the side were just grey rocks and the chasm was just a chasm.
Mm.
It was wow, yes. So I really do appreciate Indigenous cultural history of a place. Like, I did a walk through Greenland from across the Arctic Circle from the ice cap to the sea. And that whole trail is an Indigenous hunting trail for the Inuit people. It's really neat because you know that people have been walking this path for eons,
Mhm. Yeah.
and yeah, so that's what's so special about it. Yeah,
I love that you can feel the cultural
yeah,
energy
yeah.
and that all those women from probably eons, that energy is still there and it's surrounding anyone that wants to walk in there and receive that. That's amazing.
Well, the crazy thing, the important thing is that First Nation people, they
Mhm.
really, their ancestors' spirit is something which is very, very important to them. And
Mhm.
same with New Zealand. As I said, I was born in New Zealand, and in my hiking guides, I've got a lot of hiking guides on New Zealand. And if there's a little bit of Maori folk, I'll weave it in. There's a hike
Mm.
right at the very tip of the North Island. And at the very tip of the North Island, there's a big Pahudakawa tree, which is a big tree with big red flowers. And but it's very culturally, it's a very important tree. And the Maori folklore believes that the spirits, get to the top of the land and they slide down the roots of this tree and off to the afterlife. And and this trail actually goes right past this tree. So
Mm. That's special. That's pretty
so
amazing.
yeah,
Wow. I just love that, this incorporates a lot of honoring of ancestral wisdom
yeah,
and cultures, different cultures from around the world. It sounds
yeah,
like there are many. I mean, I haven't been to many places around the world, but the ones that I have been in, I can feel that energy, like at the pyramids in Mexico,
yeah, yeah.
depending on where you go. So I would assume it's similar, like you can tell there's ancient wisdom and energy in those spots.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely think so. Just think our fast life now, we have lost so much.
Mm.
I really do. And we've got all the technology, and we've got, and we think that we're so clever and all that sort of thing. But are we really that clever? No.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, no.
Well, speaking of, if anybody out there is listening or watching on YouTube and is interested in booking an experience out in the wilderness, what are some things they need to think about first? And we'll make sure that we link them to your website because you have lots of resources.
Yeah.
But what would be something that you'd want to stress for anybody who's new to hiking experiences?
Okay, so if you're new or you want to get into it, I think the most important thing is to start with a few day hikes and start going with other people. And there are so many meetup groups and Facebook groups where you can meet other people and you can start going on hikes and experiencing the wilderness. Uh, and then as your confidence gets a little bit more and you start learning about what you're supposed to do, what you're supposed to look for and all that sort of thing, then maybe start going on hikes on your own, but don't do it while when you're just starting out because there are so many, there is there are so many chances for things to go wrong. And this is one thing that kind of upsets me a little bit about social media. So especially like Instagram and Facebook, they show this amazing hike and they go, oh my gosh, it's just amazing. And they show some sexy little thing or big thing, with a backpack looking fantastic and all that. And everyone, I want to do that too. But, I had did I tell you about my experience in Canaries in our, I don't know if I did or not. I
You
had a,
didn't not in this conversation, a little bit in our pre-chat.
Right. Okay. Okay. So, I'm an advocate for safety and health and safety on the trail, and I have a great resource for it, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But I consider myself an experienced hiker, and as I said before, I was on the GR131 through the Canary Islands, which are a group of 7 islands, autonomous but owned by Spain, right down by the Western Sahara. So they're supposed to be they're supposed to be very warm. And I actually got hypothermia on one of the islands. And had I not really known what to do or what to look for, we might not be having this conversation here today. So, and it is very important that you kind of know what to look for in terms of weather, in terms of dehydration, in terms of heat related illnesses like, heat stroke, hyperthermia or hypothermia. One's hot, one's been so hot that your body can't regulate itself and cool down. And the other one's been so cold that your body can't regulate itself and get warm again, which is actually what happened to me, and then you've got, just things like being able to patch yourself up. And if you injure yourself. And so, it can and does happen to anybody. And I think that is one of the problems when people first start hiking or when people see all these things on Instagram. Not only does it make, if somebody posts a great hike on Instagram, not only does it make it that like suddenly 500 people are converging on this one pristine spot, which is no longer pristine, but it also gives people just this false sense of security, like, I can do that. Yes, you can do that, but just be aware. On my website, I've got a lot of blog posts on everything from how to go to the toilet on the trail, and it's quite descriptive and it's quite
That's
interesting.
good.
Yeah. How to fix up, what to do about blisters, what to wear on the trail. And when I go into what to wear, what does layering mean? What are all these fibers doing? How does this actually work? Because I like telling people rather than, hey, here's 10 things you should wear when you're hiking and list the 10 things and they list to affiliate links. That's not what I'm about. I'm about, okay, so wool versus polyester. They both have they're both good, but this is what one does and this is what the other one does. And this is how they work. And, a moisture wicking fabric. I talk about it in layman's terms. I explain exactly what a moisture wicking fabric does, how it works. So people go, oh, yeah, I get it. Oh, okay, I understand. And I think
Mhm.
that's really important. And then, just things like, what to eat on a hike and why you eat certain things. But I do have a really good free resource on my Soul Trader, my Soul Trader website, which is it's a free book, and it's called Health, Safety and Hygiene on the Trail. We'll put a link in the show notes, but it's free and it's got loads and loads of advice. I think I say it's got 78 pages, but I actually
Wow.
added a few more. So I think it's about 80. It's about 80 something. I just haven't changed the marketing because it really doesn't
Mm.
matter. I mean, you're still going to get it if it's 78 or it's 86. It's not going to make any difference. Yeah. So that is really worthwhile downloading if you are, and even experienced hikers have actually found that quite interesting. Yeah.
I would say so. I mean, anything from if you're not familiar with a certain part of the world, you could be a great experienced hiker, but you're still going to need to kind of think
Yeah.
about where you are and,
Yeah.
the predators that might be in the
Yeah.
area, the type of
Yeah.
insects. I mean, there's just all kinds of things to think
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. And I'll tell you something quite interesting about that, because Australian snakes and American snakes are completely different. So, and the management of the snake bite is different. So,
Mm.
our snakes bite into the lymphatic system, and your pit vipers bite into the hemoglobin system. So your snakes bite into the blood, and ours bite into the lymphatic system. So what that means is that your snake bite management is totally different. So Americans going home to Australia, oh yeah, I know what to do with a snake bite. Well, the other thing is that our snakes, they might be the most venomous snakes in the world, but they're also the most scared. So, they just slither off as soon as they hear you coming. They're not as fierce as
They're not
vipers.
aggressive like the ones
Yeah,
we
they're
have.
not. But our technique is to bind the limb using pressure mobilization technique. And if I was to go to America or other places where the pit vipers are, which is basically rest of the world, and attend to a snake bite the same way I would in Australia, I would lose that limb. And so I've got a whole. If anyone is interested in snakes, I actually really like snakes. I find them fascinating. I've got a full article on the difference between Australian and American snake, USA snakes, but I am actually going to change it to rest of world snakes. I just haven't got around to
Mm-hmm.
it. So yeah,
That's great. It's good to
yeah,
know,
yeah. I know, right?
especially when you're in other parts of the world that you're not familiar.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Okay, so I'll make sure that all your information, your websites are in our show notes. But before I let you go, is there anything that you want to stress for men and women out there that are thinking maybe a hike is something I want to entertain, but you know, besides the gear and figuring out where you want to go and how to take care of yourself while you're out there, what are going to be, the big takeaways from those experiences if you do go?
I kind of feel that anyone who goes on a hike naturally slows down. You don't have a choice. The ground is technical. A lot of the time the ground is technical. You have stones and roots and, ascents and descents, and your body is moving in so many different ways. You're almost using every single, muscle in your body. So it's so easy to really be present with yourself and that trail. And so if you're thinking about it is a great way where you're actually forced to slow down. You really are. You can go for a walk in suburbia on a pavement, and it is just this repetition, this repetitive movement. And, you won't get rid of the monkey chatter. You won't. But mind you, saying that, I do some of my best thinking on the trail. So yes, maybe that's because I've slowed down. I don't know.
That's a good point. I mean, I think if nothing else, it's, getting out of your comfort zone if you've never gone on a big hike or
Yeah,
gone to a different location and tried a different trail. So, yeah, I mean, you have to slow down to not just
yeah,
take care of yourself and be safe, but
yeah,
also see what, comes to mind when you're out in those
yeah,
spaces. They say it
yeah,
is good therapy. There's a lot of research these days about
yeah.
nature therapy too.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. And it really lowers the cortisol and all that sort of thing. It really,
Hmm.
there are so many benefits. It's unbelievable. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, Belinda, you inspired me to think about maybe going on a big hike here, but I want to go slow to go fast. So I'm going to try
yeah,
some slower, shorter hikes around this area. We have some waterfalls that I can explore before
yeah,
I take on a big hike, but one
yeah,
step at a time, right?
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Kendra. Thank you.
I was just so inspired talking to Belinda today. I think she is an inspiration for all of us out there who might be wondering if hiking is going to be something that we could, one, find enjoyment in, if it's something that might be too hard, but we want to try, or if we just want to go out and have an adventure in the world. She's a great inspiration and she offers all kinds of advice on her website. Everything from what kind of gear we should purchase to ways to take care of yourself and make sure you're safe when you're out on those travels, be it just in your backyard at a local park or somewhere on the other side of the world. This conversation was a reminder that confidence doesn't come from waiting until you feel like you're ready. It comes from showing up and letting experiences shape you. I know when I've traveled to Italy or Ireland or Mexico, I always enjoyed when I immersed myself in the culture and really got to know the local community and the people and interacted in those slow moments, those were the ones that I will always remember. And that is really the way I prefer to travel. And, every time I go on a trip, I really want to be in a local area, and you can be in the city and get to know a neighborhood in a city. You can have those immersive experiences, be it in the city or in nature. It's just how you set your intention and you make your planning a key part of your experience so you really can experience what you would like to get out of a trip. And set your intention before you go and do your homework and make sure you have all your resources in place so you feel like you're confident. But you can go with a small group. There's lots of opportunity out there with travel groups, and Belinda's website gives you all kinds of ideas to get started. If her work resonates with you, then be sure to check out her website, soultreader.com, and the House Sitting Collective, where she offers those rich resources that I've spoke about, including thoughtful guidance and tips and tricks and resources, and also access to a global community centered on immersive, responsible travel. And remember, you can get that 10% discount as a Go Slow to Go Fast listener or viewer because you stayed till the end. It's HS Travel for that 10% off. And all links are in the show notes. If this episode supported you, I hope that you consider sharing it with everybody you know who's craving more confidence, freedom, or a different way to travel or a different way of experiencing the world. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you're on YouTube so you never miss an episode, or if you're listening on Apple and Spotify. I'm coming out with the interview episodes on Thursdays and my solo casts on Tuesdays. So make sure that you subscribe so you never miss another episode. Thank you for being here. And until next time, go slow, trust the process, and take the next grounded step forward. And remember, the light in me honors the light in you. And as you head into the rest of your week, let your light shine through. Go slow to go fast, and thanks for listening.